Welcome back, everybody. All right, let's put a reality spin, which I know those two terms contradict each other, but we're going to talk about what's going to happen tonight. John, I think back to last election night in November of last year, and it was a good night for Republicans. They swept. Trump got the popular vote, the Oval Office. Republicans kept the House. They got the Senate, all that good stuff. And I understand that, the elections following that, whether it's midterms or in this case a special election, Republicans suffer, but I think it might be worse than people think.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be a good night for Republicans, and for all the reasons that they didn't do this time, but they did in 24. They didn't talk about the economy during the close, which is what people still care about. Winston Sayers ran on Youngkin's 4-year-old school parents' rights thing, which in Virginia a lot of people think is fixed in many ways. So you're leaning in. She wasn't a strong candidate. Quite frankly, Mara's was a better candidate for governor, but they did the next woman up instead of the best candidate. And then I think in Citarelli, there's not the get out the vote operation yet that I can see. And I saw some early data on polling this afternoon, and it looks like young people, which would have been a Citarelli booster, didn't, as Mark mentioned to us, didn't get out. It's possible Jack Citarelli might squeak out something if Democrat turnout's a little lower than we expected. Yeah. Maybe Jason Mraz wins, but I think Sears tanked the entire state and sort of created a negative buzz effect. And so we'll see. But, Mraz could squeak it out. Yeah. It's going to be Mamdani in New York, and it's going to be the proposition in there. I think you're going to have the socialist-like mayor in Seattle. And the one thing I'll be watching as an unexpected bellwether will be whether the Pennsylvania Republicans steal back one or two of the Supreme Court races, which could have a huge effect on the 2020 election. That's my current role, just doing reporting the last couple hours heading into this.
Yeah, John, you've been covering politics for a few years now. Have we ever come this close? I mean, with these pairs of elections in California, like you said, Prop 50, that's going to turn congressional lines into spaghetti, basically. Yeah. And then in New York, Zohran Mamdani. It does feel like we are so incredibly dangerously close to the one party in this country, the Democrat Party, tipping over the edge for socialism. Has it ever been like that?
There. I mean, listen, I think you see Ayanna Pressley come out tomorrow and run in the Senate race and challenge Ed Markey, which is hard to call anything but a liberal. He's a liberal, but I mean, she's going to be to the left of him. You got to be pretty far left to be left of Ed Markey. He used to be the far left of the party, and now he's barely in the center. He hasn't changed. The party's gone there. Listen, the country, a generation of people went through school and were trained to hate their country, and then these socialist populists have filled the void of populism that Donald Trump so closely filled, and most Republicans don't know how to talk like Donald Trump, and so they're squandering their chances. This was such an obvious economic race, and I'll tell you, I went back and looked at what everyone was talking about, and they just weren't talking about the economy. Said really a little bit about affordability in New Jersey. I think he leaned in a little bit more. The rest, I don't know. And so a socialist, a murderous, dreaming attorney general in my home state. I mean, just think of what could be tomorrow morning. But I want to go back to what I think is the big problem. Republicans just forgot how they won the 2024 election. They won it by getting early vote out. I haven't seen the early vote that impressive this year. They won on the populism and economic message. There wasn't an economic message going into this. And I think a third thing that they got to come to grips with, any consultant that says you should run from your president when your president just won the election a year ago, and by the way, he's doing pretty historic things, is a bad consultant. You got to embrace Donald Trump, even in blue states. And I think the too cautious turned out to be too stupid.
Yeah, and I think that for a lot of these candidates, they also thought that, just the mention of Donald Trump in their campaign would be enough to drag them over the line. But Donald Trump's busy. He spent 6 days in Asia last week, swinging bat after bat after bat for these deals,
Donald
and he
Trump
doesn't.
would have been in New Jersey a second if Citarelli had come in. He would have been in Virginia if Sears came in. I don't understand this dynamic, but those consultants who made that advice should be thrown out and have them go work election line next year because they don't know.
How much of it is miseducation? Because I'm looking at these videos online where they ask Mamdani voters between Venezuela, Cuba, and the Soviet Union, what's your favorite one? And they say Cuba. I really think there's a disconnect when it comes to socialist policies. And I know the idea of government-run grocery stores sounds good, but somebody's got to pay for it.
The teachers' unions and the leftist school boards romanticize the evil part of the world. and demonized the good part of America. And they created a whole generation program for the AOC political rise. It can be fixed, but it's got to be done with brute force and a little bit more sophistication than I saw in the 25 election run-up.
Yeah, well, I happen to know one lady in the federal government on Trump's cabinet who has great ideas on turning around education in this country. So we'll see how that goes. All right, everybody, we're actually sticking around because we're going to help host Election Night Covers. That's right. We're going to be here for a few more hours, so we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in a bit.